Hi, everyone. I see some people starting to filter in. Welcome to our Dog Inspired Webcast. While you're coming in, make sure to put where you're from in the chat. I'm from Ohio, and we actually have some beautiful weather today. I'm so excited to go walk my dog after this.
I am
And
in
then,
Indiana, and the weather is just as nice. So my dog and we went on a WALK before this. So
Yeah. You
If
can
it's
say it
I
spell
have
it.
to spell it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have to spell it out. Everything is spelling with a dog.
That's so funny.
and then Barney, do you want to tell us where you're from?
No. Yeah, oh yeah, I'm from
The
Los
secret.
Angeles. I'm from Los Angeles. I'm still here. And here comes a dog. Goose.
Oh, what a great way to start
Can
the
you see?
webcast.
Come here. Come on. Come on.
Let's see.
Come on. Come on.
Come on,
Yeah.
buddy. Don't be
Good boy.
camera
Oh,
shy.
really? You're always jumping under. Come here. Come on. Come on. Come here. Here. Come here. This is my son's dog, Goose.
Oh,
Uh,
what a cutie.
He's allegedly a mini Bermadoodle.
Look at that precious face. Oh, adorable.
Yeah, he's like a stuffed animal. Actually, have one of the poems is about him. Okay, go on.
so cute.
Go.
And so, Larry, where are you today?
I'm in a small mountain town called Carbondale, Colorado. It's about 3 hours up from Denver. And
Okay.
it's the Colorado weather is usually like 90% sunny, and it's very sunny out. So
Oh,
I'm
that's
sitting
so
at my
nice.
desk looking outside at a red mountain.
How cold is it?
It's
Ish.
probably about, right now, it's probably about in the low 40s,
Oh,
mid
beach
40s.
weather.
Yeah, it's really not bad. I mean, it's getting warm. This is big ski country, but there hasn't been the skiing, I guess, has been kind of touch and go, dicey, because there's not a lot of snow up there.
I'm sure we have some librarians on from Colorado and California. And Carol, where are you from?
Yeah, I'm near Santa Cruz, California, and it's we've had a really sunny February, so it's been very unusual, but it's been pleasant, but we need the rain.
How far are you and Barney apart from each other?
400 miles, I guess.
Oh,
I drove it on Monday.
Oh, you
It's
did.
about it's a 5-hour drive.
Yeah,
6
it's not
hours.
not a
if you're
great
not-
drive, but it's
Yeah. You can't take one all the way down right now.
right. This landslide
Well,
blocked it.
Because of
Yeah, oh, that.
landslides, yeah.
Wow.
And we had a little fire. Yeah.
Yeah, we have had big storms disrupt the ground a lot.
So you're not in Santa Cruz?
I'm just outside in SoCal. It's a little
Oh,
south.
yeah.
Like
Yeah,
up in the
I
you know.
I drove,
I'm
well,
up in
we
the
took
hills.
17 over. Yeah, I was at a wedding in Los Gatos and we drove over 17 through. Yeah.
Yeah.
And where else are people? Kentucky and Pennsylvania. Hi. Well, we have some students.
Oh, great. We're so happy when we get classes and students on. This is the perfect webcast for that.
What grade are the students? Fort Worth. Wow. Amazing.
Cool. That's who you are. You're on the chat, Barney. I
Yeah.
see. I wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like Romper Room when we were kids, and they would I see. Yeah. Wow.
Welcome everybody that's coming.
Third graders. Hi.
Welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have about 50 people so far, and I'm sure a ton more are going to filter in. So thank you so much, everyone, for taking time out of your day to be here. Get ready to learn more about our 3 dog-loving book creators. We have Carol Foote, Larry Day, and Barney Saltzberg. Give them a round of applause. You're going to get a behind-the-scenes look at Larry's illustrating processes. Plus, we have a really special edition from Barney today. He's going to sing a song. We'll learn a little bit more about what Barney does. Sit back, relax, and get ready to have some fun. And before we begin, I'm going to hand the mic over to Hannah so she can go over a few housekeeping items.
Yes, hello everyone. So great to be with you all today. Just a few details. The webcast is being recorded. So if you know somebody who can't be here live or you can't stay the entire time, we have you covered. Anyone who registered will receive a follow-up email next week with a link to the on-demand recording. It'll also be available next week on our website at juniorlibraryguild.com and our YouTube channel. So please feel free to share the recording with fellow librarians, teachers, friends, and readers. If you are new to Zoom and want to change your screen view, you can do so on the top right. We recommend side-by-side view because we will be sharing pictures and visuals along the way. Then you can hover over the boundary between your shared screen and the speaker's video to adjust the size of each view. We do have some special activities planned, so there will be times we recommend speaker view. And also, captions are available in the Zoom control bar. So thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for submitting all of your questions. We're going to ask as many as we can today.
All right, thank you so much, Hannah. So first, we're going to start with introductions. First off, we have Barney Saltzberg, the author and illustrator of the JLG selection, The Smell of Wet Dog and Other Dog Poems and Drawings. This has won the prestigious Bank Street Children's Book Committee Awards for 2025, also known as the Claudia Lewis Award. Barney has published close to 50 picture books and is passionate about working with children, parents, teachers, organizations on the art of making mistakes and finding play and creativity in our everyday lives. His books have won numerous awards, including Napa Gold Awards, Publishers Weekly, and Kirkus Starred Reviews. Most recently, Melinda Gates chose Beautiful Oops as one of the top 3 books that every children should read. The Smell of Wet Dog and Other Dog Poems and Drawings was available in our Easy Reading Category Plus last November. So it is available on our website if you still haven't had it in your JLG book box. And thank you so much for being here, Barney.
Thanks for having me.
Alrighty, next I'd like to introduce Carol Foote, who is the author of the JLG selection Trouble Dog, From Shelter Dog to Conservation Hero. Carol is a writer, photographer, and she loves to travel. She's been to every continent except Australia. After graduating from UC Berkeley in history, she completed a master's degree in history and a master's of journalism from UCLA. Her work has appeared in Times, the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, and popular science magazines. She and her husband have been long supporters of conservation efforts, particularly through Wildlife Conservation Network, which partners with Working Dogs for Conservation, and we'll get to learn a little bit more about that today. She loves writing for kids because their minds are open to exploring, learning, and imagining. Trouble Dog is her first picture book. Thanks so much for being here, Carol.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. This is just a great opportunity.
Lastly, but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Larry Day, who is the illustrator of the JLG selection Trouble Dog, From Shelter Dog to Conservation Hero. Larry is an award-winning picture book illustrator of both fiction and nonfiction. He was born and raised in Gibson, Illinois, a rural farming community where he flunked high school art. He received an associate's degree in commercial art and worked as a staff artist for pinball and video games before becoming a storyboard artist and picture book illustrator. Larry is a recipient of 3 gold medals from the Society of Illustrators and the SCBWI Gold Kite Award for Not Afraid of Dogs. Trouble Dog, From Shelter Dog to Conservation Hero, is available in our nonfiction early elementary category this March. So if you subscribe to this category, you probably just received this book in your book box, or you're going to receive it any day now. And if you'd like to add it on to next month's book box, you can do that very easily on our website. So thank you, Larry. Thank you also for being here.
Thank you very much. It's we love the Junior Library Guild.
Me too. So for marketing, we have Hannah, who is our automation manager. Hannah really does everything behind the scenes. She's a wizard with Zoom, technology. She answers all of my questions. So we love Hannah. We couldn't do this without her. Thank you so much for always doing this and answering all of my questions.
Of course, thank you. And I'm going to introduce Rebecca, who organized and coordinated this entire event. She does so much more at JLG. We're all together because of her. She wears many hats here, which includes being the marketing copywriter. So she does all of the amazing pieces that you can find on our website for the blog.
Thanks, Hannah. My favorite thing that I get to do at JLG is work with our authors and illustrators and publishers. It's by far the best. And also our editorial member, Liz, I want to give a special shout out to her. She was able to help me put this wonderful presentation together and research everything. And she really made this webcast what it could be. So we are so thankful for all of Liz's efforts. All right, now for the fun stuff. First, we're going to release our first poll question. So if everyone wants to look at the poll question that's about to pop up on your screen, go ahead and answer. And then in a little bit, Hannah's going to tell us about the results. All right. So first off, we would love to learn more about, why you decide to write and illustrate about dogs and furry friends. Barney, do you want to kick us off?
Well, first of all, I can't believe I can't vote. I just saw that message there. I was thinking about it last night as I was falling asleep, and I have loved dogs since as long as I can remember. I grew up with dogs, and my wife and I have had dogs always, and it feels really weird when they're at the groomer and they're not around. It's just sort of like having another appendage. It's like dogs are just part of my being, and I love them. And they're fun and amazing, and they can also be a little bit of an annoying at moments. But I think after having spent a life with them, for me, they've been in so many of my books. I've always found a way in most books, even Beautiful Oops has a tiny little, there's two dogs. One's a dog dinosaur and one's a dog. And in most stories, even if I don't mention them, I like to stick them in. And my dream was always to do a book of poems, and dogs seemed like some character that I knew the most. And that was my logical way to go. So that's my story.
Have you read Mary Oliver's dog poems?
Yes.
Iconic, right?
Yeah. I tried not to look at it when I was doing mine. Yeah.
So, Carol, do you want to talk a little bit about your special connection to dogs and why you chose to write this book?
Yeah, well, I've had dogs since I was little, and of course, like Barney says, there's something about them. It's almost like they're spiritual with you. But what really drew me to writing about this one was the connection with the wildlife and the dog finding a new home. So it was a combination of things drew me to writing this particular book.
Great. And then Larry, what's your special connection to dogs?
You know what? When you have a puppy in your arms and you're cradling that puppy like this, and the puppy is just, happy, there's that, and you see you pet the belly, there is that puppy smell. There is a definite connection automatically when you have a puppy. And it just really permeates into your together, and it's just like the bonding of human and animal there's nothing like it, right? So, and yeah, I also have grown up with dogs and cats. And most of the cats that around where I grew up, they were strays, and they would come by because there was something left out for them to drink. But yeah, there's just a special relationship that it's hard to describe.
I know on the JLG marketing team and beyond, we are big dog lovers. And so every meeting kind of starts with, okay, how's everyone's dogs doing?
Yeah.
You know, who's gone on their walk today?
Mhm.
Then you pull out the pictures, right?
Oh, of course. Of course. And speaking of pictures, we thought we'd show the audience some of these great
Oh.
photos.
Mm.
What I really love about this photo is Lucy is also wearing socks.
Yeah, she would just wear the socks, even in the warm weather.
So
I love
funny.
that.
Lucy
yeah.
would also eat any vegetable except spinach.
Doesn't like spinach.
Just like me.
No, she didn't like spinach.
Oh, that's good.
We
So
also
cute.
have Carol's beautiful dog, Lily.
What an
I love
adorable
how she
dog.
posed with your book. Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
actually, the book posed with her. That's her favorite spot in the morning, just lying on the couch.
And Carol, I also have a golden. Her name's Hazel. For anyone watching, I don't think you'll see her today. She is laying next to me. You might hear her though when our mail comes.
Oh,
I'll talk about Carol's dog later when there's an interesting thing about her dog, Lily.
Yes, we will definitely have to talk about that. Before we do, here's Barney with his grand dog. Such a great photo.
No,
We
no,
can
oh no,
totally
his name is actually Goose. My dog, is on the cover, is Ollie, but Goose is my son's dog.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah,
that's your dog on the cover. Okay, cool.
yeah. He's around somewhere in the yard.
Did he pose for that?
Uh, Probably. No, but that's a common shot.
I like the eyeballs kind of rolled up. Like,
Yeah.
He
okay,
does that. He's a doodle, and they're like stuffed animals that breathe.
Yeah. A lot of expression and very happy dogs.
Yeah.
all right. So next off, we thought we'd kind of start off with a fun reading from The Smell of Wet Dogs. So I am going to pass the mic to Barney.
Okay. One I thought I really like. I don't know why. This one. Oh, you want me to read that one? I'm holding up my book. I Love Dogs. That's a very appropriate first one to read. I love dogs. Big dogs, little dogs, dogs that do tricks. Happy dogs, sleepy dogs, dogs that chase sticks, dogs that roll over, dogs that play ball. Short hair or furry, I love them all. Some dogs just sit, some dogs just stand. I love dogs that dig doggy holes in the sand. It isn't their noses, their tails, or their paws. I love dogs just because.
Very good.
We'll give some
That's
snaps for Barney. And I picked out a few other ones that I thought could be fun. If you
These are
want to read
quickies.
these.
Yeah, a dog's tail. She chased her tail around and around, and around some more. Without fail, this dizzy hound wound up on the floor. She jumped and chased her tail around the other way. She will never catch it, but she tries to every day.
There's such fun movement in this poem, and I think that's why I was drawn to this one.
Mm,
Like I can really visualize it, I can hear it, I can feel it.
I've never had a dog like that. I've seen it though. It's crazy.
yeah, I've seen Lily chase her tail every once in a while, not every day like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Carol, my golden, her name's Hazel, and when she was a puppy, she would do it. She's
Yeah.
5, so she's grown out of it. But when she was real little, she was so fascinated by her own tail.
Yeah, our cats chase their tails.
It's funny, just because it's here, I'll say this as an illustrator. First of all, this book was drawn on my iPad, and I had originally had a drawing where it showed the whole bike and a kid on it, and I realized that what was really important was just to indicate that there was a bit of a bike, and
Yeah.
I wanted to really focus on the dog chasing that. So this is called Chasing Bikes. You can pedal, pedal, pedal as fast as you can. It doesn't really matter since I've got a plan. Up the block, down the block, wherever you are riding, I will follow you. There is no use in hiding.
I liked learning about, the decisions you get to make as both the author and the illustrator. I think
Well,
that's really
the
interesting.
other thing that was fascinating was my editor really wanted a black and white book. And I, as most of us, had Shel Silverstein books growing up, and um, they were black and white. And I thought it's been many, many decades since those books came out. I wanted color, but I really wanted to limit my color. I don't have a lot of colors in this book, but I also always draw outlines and fill in my characters with color. And I wanted to try more textures and have very little outline. And it was a challenge for me, and I'm really glad I had an editor who was open to it. So it's a
It
different look.
works. It
Yeah.
works that way really well because you focus on what needs to be focused on, like the animation of your drawings
Mm-hmm.
and the placement of the poem is important too.
Yeah.
But there's one thing I noticed about your book, Barney, that I want to just mention quickly. We have the same disease. We have to illustrate on every surface of a book. So as you do these in your end papers,
Uh-huh.
can you see this?
Yeah,
Yeah. So you put these on the end papers, right? Because there's places to put art.
of course.
So that's what I did too. It's like I love doing the whole thing with the because that's what pulls you into the book. That's what you see first, right?
I
So
loved that, Larry, when I
boom.
first opened the book and saw that. I was just so taken with each of those little drawings that were also
Boom.
had so much humor and love that was great.
Well, on those end papers, it's not a given that as a illustrator we get to draw on them. Sometimes
Right.
there isn't a budget for it, and they just have solid colors or a pattern or something. But whenever there's an opportunity to be able to design your own end papers, it's such a gift. And
Yeah.
I mean, I used to draw on my paper bag before I went to school every day. I would draw on my lunch bag. So yeah, it's been a thing.
Well, the thing about the if it goes to paperback, those end papers are usually not on the paperback edition, unless you draw. It's a historical book and there's a map included, which is why I found if I draw a map on the book, then when it goes
Who
to
knew?
paperback, they'll always do that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
I love learning more about the illustrating processes, things I didn't know. And so Barney, I wanted to talk a little bit about the poetry from your book
Mm-hmm.
and how you chose what aspects of a dog's character to depict, right? We just read, you talked about how you love dogs and all those characteristics. We talked about a dog chasing its tail. Did you have to sit down and observe your dog to write this? Did these things kind of come naturally to you?
You
Um,
know, go ahead.
and also, were there any poems that didn't make it into the final version?
Oh, there was plenty. As I was saying before we started the webcast today, one of the poems that just slipped by all of us, I had written actually one called Lost, and I wrote one called Shelter, and I wrote one called Found, and somehow that trio just didn't make it. And I really yeah, so those are ones that we forgot about. But then the ones sometimes poems just don't work, or sometimes I write a story that just doesn't work, and I'll work on it. And sometimes I can find a way to make the story um, something that a publisher wants to put out, and sometimes it just doesn't quite cut it. There was a couple poems that didn't make it in, but like I just opened my copy of the book. I did a poem for Slowing Down, which we did have a golden lab who we lost in May. She had gotten old, and I wrote a poem for her slowing down. When my son got Goose, I wrote I Am Your Puppy. And my daughter has a dog that I wrote a poem called I Can't Get Enough. And it's just a dog that you could pet it until from the moment you woke up till the time you went to bed, and the dog wouldn't be satisfied. It would still need more petting. So that, so some of it was just that kind of a thing. Looking at actually Lost did make it in a haiku bed. There's a poem that says, "My dog is very happy snoozing on my bed. Sometimes I am her pillow. When she sleeps on my head." That's my life every night, with our dogs in our bed. So a lot of them were just from things that I experienced daily. Some of them I just kind of got goofy and made up. Um, this one, Mistaken, which I really liked a lot too. Not something I ever experienced or witnessed, but it just, once I got into the mindset of I'm writing dog poems, things just happened. I just kind of got into that groove of what dog things could I be writing about. And as I would be falling asleep at night, I would think about it. Goose just walked into my studio, and walking my dogs, just thinking about it and giving myself the goal of what kind of dog things can I make up. And it just became my life for a few months.
That's it. That's a good life to live.
Yeah.
I was just talking with Larry earlier today, and Larry, I hope you're okay if I share this. But I told Larry, I was so excited for our webcast. I'd already walked my dog twice this morning just to get some energy out. And Larry told me, Larry, do you want to tell everyone what you said?
Oh, is it about the people?
Yeah.
I think that walking dogs is more about meeting other people, right? Where it's like, oh, what a cute dog. What's his name? Blah, blah, blah. So it just goes on and on like that. So there's a dog park that we used to take Lucy, that's just a beautiful couple acres, actually, that you can let your dog off leash. And that's what they really like to do, right? So, and then you just meet people. So it's really cool. It's great.
I really
Lily
connected.
walking dog. Sorry, go ahead.
I just really connected when Larry said that line today, that walking dogs is more about the people you meet. Because when I first moved to Columbus, I was from a smaller town. And so that's kind of how I met people, was by walking my dog or going to the dog park.
Hmm.
And I have a golden retriever, so she's very excited to talk to everyone.
Hmm.
And that's how I met people. That's how I met some of my really good friends. And that's how, it's pretty easy to get along with another person who has a dog, or at least
Yeah.
I find that to be true.
Yeah, that's true.
Carol, I'm sorry if I cut you off. What were you saying?
No, I cut you off. I was just going to say, with a golden retriever, they want to meet people almost as much as we do. They just,
Mhm.
Lily can't wait to meet all the people on the road, and we know all the people in our area because of walking the dog, and they all have their dog. It's really wonderful.
Now, does Lily prefer to meet the other dog or to meet the other owner for the pets?
She's really more interested in the people. She likes the dogs.
Really?
She likes to play with them, but she almost first wants to always go say hi to the person.
See, to me, that's food for a poem.
Okay. You can have it.
I want
If
that
there's
by
a-
1 o'clock today.
It'll happen.
All right. So before we move on to question 3, Hannah, would you like to share kind of what everyone answered on the first poll question?
Yeah. So majority was medium-sized dogs. Large came in second. 30% said small and 5% said tiny.
I think I expected those results. Hazel is definitely a medium-sized dog. And Hannah, do you want to tell us a little bit about your dog?
I have a medium-sized dog that's more on the higher end of medium-sized dog, which we were not expecting when we got him as a puppy, but we love every part of him.
If anyone can see Hannah's a background, her calendar on the wall there, that's her dog Xander. And so every holiday, the marketing department, we get Xander calendars,
I
which is
love
so
it.
great because I get to see different versions of Xander, dressed up for Halloween. Valentine's Day, he has a cute little bandana with some hearts on it.
I was just thinking about the size there in those answers. And Barney, I don't know if you've written a poem about this, but I've never, dogs don't realize what size they are,
Absolutely.
right? They have no idea.
Yeah.
We have a friend with two dogs. One is a Rhodesian Ridgeback,
Mhm.
and the other one is just a small mutt. And the mutt is more aggressive than the Rhodesian Ridgeback. It will protect the Rhodesian Ridgeback from other dogs.
Aw.
They just
Well,
don't,
we
they
call
have
it the
no idea.
Napoleon complex.
Yeah.
Well, but then we have, my daughter has a dog named Waffle Monster who could stand on her hind legs and have her paws on my shoulders. And that dog would sit on my lap like a tiny dog if she could. She tries often. She has no
Yeah.
idea how big she is.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
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 Carol, how big is Lily?
Yeah, she's about 80 pounds now, I think. So she's not enormous, but we have friends who have a Newfoundland, and the Newfoundland scares her to death because it's so big.
Yeah.
But
That's a
so
big
maybe
dog.
she's sort of, I think of her as large, but I guess she's sort of medium. Yeah. When she
Hazel,
was growing up, oh, sorry, here I go again.
oh no,
When
Hazel's
she was
about
growing up and she
65.
was little, she used to play with the neighbor's little dog. And they just wrestled and they were exactly the same size. And I think it just really baffled the little dog as she got bigger, bigger, bigger. And then they don't play anymore. The little dog's afraid of her now.
Oh,
People
all
are,
right.
are putting in dog comments on the chat. It's great.
It's
We
fun.
definitely have dog lovers here.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
good. I was hoping we'd reach that audience.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think Hannah's going to launch poll question number 2 now. And I have another question for Barney. Okay, so the next poll question is about if you had a classroom animal. So I can't wait to hear what our classes say. All right.
I'm gonna guess on that one.
So Barney, in The Smell of Wet Dog, you act as the author and the illustrator. And so I was kind of wondering how your processes work. Are you writing first? Are you illustrating first? Are you doing it all at the same time? How does that work in your head, and kind of how do you organize everything?
Yes. There's never been a particular format for me or a formula. I mean, when I first started writing my very, very, very first book, I was 24. I drew the entire book before I wrote anything. I just had a really easier time drawing. And at some point in time, things sort of shifted. With traditional books, there have been times when I've been stuck on a story, and we talked about this when we first met. It's like a casting call when I try to figure out what character is going to be the character of that story. Obviously, these are going to be dogs, but I'll draw different dogs and I'll kind of get a sense of which one makes sense for the poem. But sometimes if I'm stuck, I'll be drawing those characters and the physicality of that character, how they're sitting, how they're standing, what the facial expression is, sometimes will surprise me and actually influence the way my writing goes. It might suggest something that I hadn't thought about. With these poems, I pretty much wrote them first and then started to illustrate to really find the right dog and the right snapshot. Think about it like a movie, and what picture are you going to freeze to show to go with these poems? And one of the things that I really thought about was I didn't want them to feel, some of them are, the cover is for sure posed as if you were just sitting there. I wanted it to feel more like a candid moment that I captured. to have some movement in the drawings. And I'm not going to draw today. You're going to see Larry, and we're going to all make it look very easy. But there's a lot of trial and error and drawing things over and over and over again. Even with my simple line drawings, I do these many times to get the right one. But for this, it was definitely the poem first and then the drawings.
I know you sent us some really great photos. Here's you at a book signing.
Mhm.
And then we have some really fun ones of you doing a school visit.
Yeah.
So
That was from an art teacher who took some of my characters from a book I wrote called A Delicious Story, and she presented me. Some of them are in my studio in the back, with foam core, which was amazing to see.
And so do you do a lot of school visits? Are you working with a lot of students? How does that work?
Well, I mean, I've been doing this a really long time, and I used to go on book tours and really spend a lot of time on the road. And since the pandemic, kind of things shifted to more virtual. I'm going out for a week to go to Wyoming in March, and then the Bay Area in April, and some smatterings here and there. But I love staying home. And so virtual things too. It's not quite the same to be able to be in a room with people, but it's a mix. Um, just look at that shot. I mean, I could do that on a screen. It's not the same. Uh, but I do a mix, not as much as I used to.
Right. Next, we're going to shift our questions to Trouble Dog. And also, so Trouble Dog just released this week, right, Carol?
Yeah, on Tuesday.
Mhm.
So exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so do you want to tell us just a little bit about your book and your inspirations behind it and the real life organization that you wrote about?
Sure. So I'd never heard of a conservation dog, and a lot of people tell me they haven't. So it was wonderful. I went to a wildlife like a conservation expo in San Francisco, and there was a handler from Working Dogs for Conservation, Megan Parker, and she had her dog Pepin, and they were demonstrating how Pepin could she would hide things and Pepin would run and find them. And then she talked about all the things that conservation's dog did, how they can find invasive plants and animals that people can't see, that are too small before they even erupt from the ground, or animals like in the book, little tiny snails that are hidden and they can find them, but they can also find scat that people can't find easily, of endangered animals or rare animals. They're so helpful, and that was all really interesting. But then she told how these dogs are so full of energy and wild and intense that they just get rejected by families and taken to shelters, and that they had learned to look in shelters for them. So that just touched my heart. I just thought, that's just an amazing story of the dogs being rescued and given homes and given purpose and a job that they love. And so I decided I just wanted to write that story. I wanted to write it as a fiction story about a dog who had gone through that, and I interviewed her and another trainer at Working Dogs for Conservation, Amy Hirsch, and about their dogs. And they told me so many stories about their adventures in the wild and how they trained the dogs. And like Amy found her dog had been, her dog Wicked had been in a shelter for 6 months. No one would take it. And he turned out to be a great conservation dog. So I love this organization, Working Dogs for Conservation, sends dogs all over the world. They give dogs a new home, and they give dogs to rangers in Africa, and it's a wonderful organization.
I love reading a book when I can learn something new. And when I read Trouble Dog, I thought your back matter was so extensive and so well researched. And so I'm so happy that's in the book so people can learn more about this organization.
Oh, thank you. That gave me the chance to tell a lot of the facts about working dogs and how they've trained them and all the stuff that's fascinating, and keep the story about the heart of the dog being rescued and finding its place in the world.
I have a friend who actually just adopted a dog, and they made the news. This dog was in a shelter for 8 years, and
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
it had been passed around from shelter to shelter. If anyone here is from Northeast Ohio, perhaps you've seen the news clip. But yeah, it found their forever home with my friend, and they
Wow.
said the dog's a little skittish. It just hasn't been around people in so long, so they're kind of like reacclimating it. And the dog's 8 years old. It's an older
Wow.
dog, so it's never
What
too
a
late.
heartwarming story. That is great.
Yeah.
So happy it found their home. Yeah.
That takes a lot of work and love and patience, enormous amount of patience for a challenging dog, right?
And that almost makes the message of trouble dog, that much more special or
Mhm.
hitting, right?
Yeah.
I love that these dogs are rescued from shelters
Mhm.
and put to this amazing work. And I had never heard about this organization before I read your book. So I'm really happy there's a book about it.
I hadn't either. And it's amazing that they can go from being rejected to actually loving what they do in the world. They love working with a trainer. They love the pursuit of the job. They're so intense and it's fun for them. And then they love the reward of the play. And it's such a happy story to go
Hmm.
from being rejected to that. Yeah.
And Carol, this is just a question I thought of. I don't know if you know this. So do the dogs live with the trainers that they
Yes.
work with? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, that opening shot with the torn screen and the toaster falling and everything that Larry has captured, I kept saying, because I wanted in the book to put how much trouble they could get. Can they jump on counters? Yes. Can they burrow through walls? Yes. Can they open doors? Yes. Do they knock down screens? Yes. They can do. I kept saying they could do almost anything you can think of. They get into
Wow.
trouble. So they're a handful, but they know how to train them and help them give them a really fun pursuit that they love. So
And that's great for
Perfect.
an organization to like see that and do something, transform that dog. That's amazing. That's
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, really good. That's really great. And so the two dogs I've already mentioned Peppet, and then Wicket was the one that was in the pound for 6 months. And so I based the story on the two of them and their training and adventures and going out in the world.
And before I jump to your photos, Carol, Hannah, would you like to share the results of our latest poll question?
Yes,
Whoa.
I don't think any of us are surprised that
Oh.
54% said dog. Goldfish was 20%, cat 16%, and then snake at 11%.
We'll have to work on the snake thing.
Yeah, really. Great.
Thanks, Hannah. Would you go ahead and launch that next poll question for us? Thank you. And so, when I'm putting together a presentation for a webcast, I always ask our creators for some photos. And, I'm not very specific on the photos I want because I want to see where the creators will take it. I want to see their passions. I want to see what they love. I want to see what inspires them. And so, when I was reading Carol's bio and I learned that she was such a huge traveler, I automatically loved all of her travel photos. And so, Carol, I know you're also a photographer, as we can see in this first photo. I was wondering, do the artistry of photography and writing, do those overlap for you? How do you draw inspiration from your travels? How is that woven into your books?
So actually, photography was a really nice break from writing for me. I think my brain, it just uses a different part of the brain. Maybe this is true for you too, Barney and Larry, also, that I don't know, the visual helped rest the part of the brain that would write. So I liked that. They didn't work together very much. I mean, sometimes when I was a photojournal, a freelance journalist, I would work on a story where I'd do the pictures and I would do the writing, but I used a really different part of my brain. So yeah, I really wanted guidance about what pictures to send you, but I'm glad these worked. I didn't do a ton of traveling really till my kids had grown. And I was a photojournalist, I mostly photographed people who were famous, like the Dalai Lama and Steve Jobs and
Oh, wow.
things that were going on in the world. And the wildlife photography, we really had a chance to travel, came later when the kids were older. These are my two boys, and we went to Egypt, and my husband Steve and I went
Sorry.
to
That is
Machu
not
Picchu.
Egypt.
Here we go. Here's Egypt.
That's Egypt.
That's
So I love traveling, and I have gotten ideas for picture books from traveling about animals. None of those have been published, though.
Not yet.
Not yet. That's
that's
right.
right.
Yeah.
That's the right attitude.
Well, thank you so much for sharing those photos with us. I know we talked a little bit about this, but I just want to bring it up again. You know, Trouble Dog offers this really beautiful, encouraging message that maybe in one situation, a dog or a person, they don't seem as valuable. And in another situation, they're invaluable, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
Tucker from your book. I mean, he really found his stride once he was working for conservation dogs. Have you shared this book with any young readers? You know, what have kids thought so far?
I haven't
And
shared
then,
it with young readers. The book has
okay,
actually started shipping a few days or maybe even a week before the official publication. So a lot of people have read it, and we're getting great professional reviews as well as reviews from people who have read it. And I have had two people tell me they read it to their children who loved it. And one had a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, and the 7-year-old sort of the right age group, and he wanted to read every single word in the back matter. He was fascinated, and then he wanted to go to the library and find out more. And the 3-year-old, though, wanted her to read it 3 times in a row. So that was nice that it would appeal to all those age groups. And yeah, people do like the fact that there's this, hopeful message that you can be trouble or you can not have found where you belong yet, and yet you have special talents too, and you can
Mhm.
find your place in the world. And as well as that, people love hearing about dogs and the enduring relationship between humans and dogs, and also about conservation and a positive thing that we can be doing in the conservation field. So those 3 things I think resonate with people. So you've asked what part of the book particularly resonated with me. Really, it's the line, you don't want this dog, it's trouble. And in the story, it's Laura, but it was really Amy saying, maybe the right kind of trouble.
Mm.
Which was a true story, except that the shelter person used the word crazy. You don't want this dog, it's crazy. She thought it might be the right kind of crazy. And that's what resonates with me, is finding the right kind.
absolutely. And Larry, I was kind of wondering, what from the book when you were reading it, what resonated with you while you were starting your first illustrations?
Well, the first thing I'll say is the title resonated immediately. I didn't even read the manuscript. Uh, Once I read the title, I thought I have to read this manuscript. So, and books, picture books always start out, as Barney said, they always start out with the text first. You can't have, you can't start drawing something unless you have the words. That's the most important thing. So I was really intrigued by this title, Trouble Dog. What, what's going on here? And then I realized that this is like a big message that doesn't beat you over the head about you can transform something into something else. You can like, there's that, um, I don't know if it's ADHD or whatever it is, but in me, but I was like connected with this right away because I love the transformation. I love the heart and that when I get a manuscript, I read it and reread it and reread it. And then I read it out loud to hear it. Um, and the one thing that struck me was how much heart was in this story. And there was a heartbeat. What you look for as in picture books is you look in manuscripts is you look for a heartbeat in it that is consistent through the whole book. And that's captured in this book and Barney's book also. Um, so um, then I would just draw thumbnail sketches like this. I don't know if you want me to go into this right now or not, but this is a book. This is not Trouble Dog, but this is what it looks like when I start thinking about stuff. And then I make a book dummy, and this is the book dummy and that's that's, just the beginning is what a book, it's not the real thing. It's just, um, not yet there. And so this is where everything happens that Carol just described in the kitchen. So this is like
Oh,
what
this is Trouble Dog book
this is
dummy.
Trouble Dog, right? So I would actually literally cut the text out, Carol's text, and place them in spots just to get the feeling of how it would look, um, from page to page. So this is all done in black and white, and um, so and if you notice that this dog is not the dog that I used, I don't know if you can see that or not, but that took many rounds of figuring out what dog to really finally use.
For those, I'm curious because I illustrate my own books, but Larry, when you got the manuscript, does it give you any indication of which text is on which page, or does that come from your book dummy?
That I try to separate myself.
Okay, so for people who, students who are wondering how we make our books, and for anybody who's an aspiring writer slash illustrator or either one, what Larry just showed becomes so integral to a story, the rhythm of a page turn. And so
Hmm.
the way this text is set up and the drawings, our job is to make you want to turn the page as visually to go
Yeah,
along so that we set things up and then you turn the page. And there's a whole rhythm to that. And it's takes some time, but it's something that we definitely work on when we're putting these together. And I can't wait to read this book. I haven't gotten to see it yet.
well, I know, Barney, there was one thing you commented when we were talking earlier about this um, movement of this one page,
Hmm.
right, with the elephant, um,
Yeah,
that you
there. They
mentioned
got it on
something
the screen.
about. Oh, there it is. Okay. That the movement was from left to right.
Hmm.
So, and you were asking me why it was going that way, and it's because the book moves that way when we read. So we
Yeah, I've
anticipate the
never
next
drawn a
page.
picture going the other direction. It's just
Yeah,
so funny. But you have,
yeah,
I love how the people, the way they could have been standing there, but you have a movement to them. You have a movement to the dog, movement to the water, movement to the elephant. I mean, there's so much going on here.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then you frame the text with a tree. It's just a great composition.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
And Larry, as you were talking about, this book dummy that you make, I almost wonder if there's a chance for our librarians on the call to do some type of book dummy programming, right? Like if we have some aspiring writers or illustrators in the classroom, could you make book dummies of your favorite books or books you want to write?
Well,
yeah,
I'll interject for a second. Larry's got we both have it, but I'd go with him. As far as before the book dummy, storyboarding, which is where
yeah.
you work
Right.
out all of those movements in a small thumbnail before you make the book dummy. It's really an important step, and I think he's a master at that.
Yeah, even at this stage right here, this is a storyboard. This is right. These are thumbnail sketches. Thumbnail refers to a thumbnail, right? They're small.
Yeah.
So the smaller you can draw something, the easier it is to see the whole thing. And then what I do is take and elaborate on those to say this scale where it's a little more detail. And then I will cut those out and spread them out on the table and just see how it feels, see how the whole book feels of an as an overview.
You know, it's part of the writing process, true, too. You don't use mine, but when I'm writing this book, I definitely did a book dummy myself with stick figures because I
Really?
can't draw, but making sure that, you know, it fit in the number of pages that it should have, that there was like different scenery in different pages. It wasn't always the same thing, to just sort of see how the book would feel, not knowing it wasn't going to be like that, but making sure that it worked.
Yeah, right.
So, Carol and Larry, here's a question for you. Um, Carol, when you were writing it, did you choose where to break up the text? Or Larry, was that something you chose? How does that work?
Well, I broke it up in my mind, knowing that it wasn't up to me. But as I said, made sure it would work. And I probably sent it out with the breaks showing. But then I don't know what my agent did in terms, she may have done her own breaks. She may have left out the breaks. I don't know how Larry got it because we didn't communicate until after the book was published.
Um, I have it online and I could look, but I think it was broken down to a degree. But I usually just, as an illustrator, I usually just ignore that anyway. And I look at
And I would
the,
expect you to, you know,
yeah,
it's
and
just,
then
I have
I
to do
look
it.
and see where I think this might be better on this page because the text leads you to something or not, you know. So yeah, I usually end up breaking them up myself, and that's not an easy thing to do. And that's something that always, as I work on a book, that changes all the time. You know, so the whole thing about doing these books is it's all revision all the time. You're revising your thoughts because especially if you do something and you put it away for a while, you come back to it and you have like fresh eyes. So you can, some of that stuff just changes all the time.
Here's a question for all of our creators. How do you know when to stop revising? How do you know when something feels final or done?
It's a really good question. It's a really good question. For me, you know, I think I've been doing this for a while now, and I just have a sort of a sense of when it's right. I looked at a book I'm doing, the sequel to Smell of Wet Dog. I'm doing a cat poetry book, and I had done a drawing for one of the poems, and I thought I was done, and I looked at it last night, and I went, it's a lot of work, but I could make this look better. You know, my best friend's an architect. When we were both single, we lived together, and he used to say to me he liked my pencil drawings better than my finished. This
Hmm.
was decades ago. And what that told me was I was overworking my drawings. And so to keep that sense of movement, you know, there is something about the first time you draw it or something that has a vibrancy to it. So you have to be careful because it's easy to kill something if you keep drawing it over and over and over again. So it just sort of becomes, for me, something that I've taught myself. Hopefully, I haven't overworked things to the point of them being stale. So, Larry, what do you do?
Well, you're right about that. The original pencil drawings are usually like, oh, how am I going to capture this in the final? Right?
Yeah,
So that is what I strive for. If I don't have that freshness to it, I'll do it again and again until I get it right. So, in fact, this book started out, I had it all finished,
yeah,
and the creative director and I thought, I don't think it's right. The dog is not right for this. So, I ended up doing the whole thing all over again
it's
from
crazy.
scratch. And I sent in another book dummy actually. And um, so yeah, it's there. There it is. That was the first dog on the left. It just too mean looking, you know. It's just
You
like,
even changed his toy.
yeah. I changed the toy, yeah. Well, no, I did keep that toy in there. It's just on the cover. I just wanted to indicate that Trouble Dog has got somebody's shoe,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know. So, and
Well,
then
can we go back for just a second to the one with the elephant?
yeah.
Because this is something I think about, and it's just something to bring to people's awareness. If you read that text and which is what Larry got before he created an image for it, and there were so many things you could have drawn, and you ended up with this one. Did you try other things first?
I
Because
did.
I
Yeah.
think I might have focused on the poop.
Yeah.
You did not.
Well, I was thinking about it. In fact, my wife said, "You can't have that dog there. That elephant's going to poop on it."
Well,
But
yeah.
that's yeah, I did a few other versions of this. I had read this is a redo of like 2 or 3 times until I
I
got what one
Well,
thing about this was the dog that I finally used was a dog that I saw jumping. We were out on a camping trip and this dog was jumping in and out of the bay and fetching tennis balls. So I had all these drawings and pictures of this dog, this specific dog. I don't know whose it was, but so the water, so that's why I thought of the water to this on this illustration. That's what made me think of the water.
but so there's a thing that there's a wonderful book that Abrams put out on the art of Maurice Sendak, and they
Hmm.
talk about illustration versus as opposed to illumination. Like you don't want to draw exactly what you wrote. There's no point.
Right,
So what can you add to it? And there's a
right,
line in this, I'm reading this, that says we even wrote elephants. You don't show it, which is
right.
great because we can imagine it. So
Yeah.
it's but all those things because I think the person starting out usually draws exactly what they've written and it's not needed. So you've illuminated it here in a really nice way.
Well, the nice thing about this one was I did have it drawn originally with them riding on an elephant, and then the creative director and Carol said they don't really do that anymore. That's so that gave me an
They do,
opportunity
but
to
they
be
don't want to
creative.
encourage people to think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
okay they sometimes need to ride on an elephant to get into some of the terrain, but they didn't want that to be in the book where it looked like, oh, look, let's ride on an elephant. So, yeah.
Well, when I heard that, I thought, okay, I got this is going to work out really well because now it gives me a better idea. Now I can just hint at things. So that, which is
Yeah.
always better at storytelling.
Yeah, so again, for any students who are listening to this or aspiring adults who want to write and illustrate, know that there's a lot of trial and error to get these right. It's not a one
Hmm.
time. So don't
Right.
beat yourself up if it doesn't work the first time.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
you were asking about the feedback and or like how you know when you're done. And I just want to say with writing, it's a really different because you get a lot of feedback along the way. So you write it to the point you think it's really good, and then you show it to your critique group, and then they tell you everything's wrong with it, and then you write it again, and then you get, you give it to your critique group and they tell you more, and then you give it to somebody else and they tell you more, and then you finally get to the point you're sending it out to agents, and then they're telling you what's wrong with it, why they don't want it. And then you finally find an agent who wants it, and then they work with you on it. My agent worked with me for a year with
wow.
through two, it was just two, I think it was 2 or 3 versions, so it wasn't a lot of amount of time, but or actually spent on it, but it was you get a lot more feedback than I think you do in illustrating. So
Oh
and
no.
they get to the point, so you kind of know you're done when it's accepted. But I still, when I read it, think, oh, I could have that word could be changed.
Oh,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But also but what Carol, you're bringing up is this concept that 10 people are going to give you 100 different responses.
Hmm.
And and that's the thing about working with an editor and trusting each other. And that takes some time because everybody has an opinion.
And you really, yeah, you have to find people like my critique group. I really trust them now.
Yeah,
My agent was fantastic, I thought, but somebody else had sort of accepted it, saying, "But I want you to change this, and I want you to change this," and it didn't feel right to me, so I didn't go with them. But you have to find somebody that you agree with what they're
absolutely.
saying, and they see your vision and are being helpful, not harmful.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Important.
got to be somebody you trust, right?
Absolutely.
But it's just amazing how many people are involved in a picture book. There's a
It,
lot.
it really is.
It's not.
It's
Oh,
not the
yeah.
product of one person. It's a
Yeah.
huge
Right.
team effort.
Yeah. It is a big team effort.
Yeah, 2 nights ago, I sent an email to my editor, the two editors I'm working with, someone in publicity and marketing, and my agent. And I thought I had the cover and the title and everything. And I woke up because they're all in New York, and no, thank you, they didn't like it.
Oh.
It was like, oh, I'm not working alone. I have to go back and think about this again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I
Carol,
think when I
oh,
just
sorry, Larry.
one last little tidbit. When I just looked at this and it was I was I did it took 2 years for me to do this book.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 years, which I've had other books that have taken that long too.
Colors are great.
Carol, I kind of wanted to, for those on the call who maybe haven't read this book yet, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the adventures that Tucker goes on? Like, what is he doing here? And then maybe we can talk about the artwork as well.
Oh, okay. So yeah, here, so they were looking for cheetah scat, because by finding the scat of an animal, they are able to see how far the range is, how the animals are related to each other, what they eat, how old they are, maybe not how old they are, but lots of things about them. How healthy they are, what they eat. And so that's one of the things they were doing. And it was apparently 100 degrees, and they spent a lot of time. I mean, you can go a long way in Africa and not see a cheetah, but you can also apparently go a long way and not find any cheetah scat. So here, the dog, Tucker, was looking for cheetah scat for them, and they walked. Megan said they walked 10 miles a day in 100 degrees, often with the grass up to their shoulders. And then finally Pepin said, oh, there's some up in the tree. He signaled, there's up in this tree. And they all thought, no, cheetahs don't go up in trees and poop in trees. So they didn't really believe him, but he turned out to be right. So that's what's happening here.
That's such an incredible story. And I'm so happy Tucker was able to find it, or pep it in real life.
Pepin in real life, I loved it when Megan told me that story, and I thought that's the story I want to finish with, where he's successful and they don't believe him, but they learn he's right.
And Larry, earlier this week when we talked, you had kind of talked about like the movement of the tree. And maybe at first when you illustrated this, the tree was up straight. So
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about, your artistic direction when you were deciding which way to place the tree?
Well, yeah. So there's this uniqueness to the trees that Carol, I think it was you that sent a reference shot.
Yeah, because it
But
turned out, they can't go up a straight tree, so you had to think about how the tree was angled.
Well, the cool thing was, so the tree I drew could have been like in a forest in central Illinois. It's it could have been an oak tree, but that would not. But it was cool to do this because once I got the reference shot, I realized, oh yeah, I've seen those trees before. That's where it is. Okay, so that's a specific area in the world, and trees grow like that, and they have that kind of color. It's difficult to draw a tree like that because it looks like it's falling over. So I have to make it look like it's got to be alive, and there's also got to be trees in the background that are similar to it that suggest that it's a like the landscape is blanketed with it. And also it's a tree that looks like that dog looks like Tucker could actually climb that tree.
Yeah.
So that was cool. So that gave, every time something is drawn, there's a possibility that it could be redrawn in a better way. And that was in this case. And I also
Excellent.
wanted Tucker to look very, very excited. Like, I wanted the dog to look confident that there was something up there.
You can tell he is excited. He is barking. Yes. It's like when the mailman comes to my door.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you look at his
Exactly.
back legs, I mean, he's on the move. He's not just
Yeah.
standing there.
Yeah.
Tucker knew.
Right.
Right. So,
Right.
I know we've been talking a little bit about illustration, Larry,
Hmm.
but we were wondering, do you have any secrets, any tips or tricks when you're
Oh,
capturing, dog body language, gestures, expressions?
yeah, I do. It's like it's kind of simple, but the thing that you just watch a dog and you draw it. Um,
That's
like
it.
Simple.
That's
yeah, I
it.
mean, like
Come on, everybody can do it.
these are dogs that, just my sketchbooks are filled with this.
Same thing.
It's just like I think I've posted these drawings, but this is that dog that I was just drawing and looking at photographs I take too and draw from those. This is a dog that was at our
Th-
friend's house, and I put this dog in the book. Um,
Those are a little hard to see for me. I don't know if you guys,
is it too hard to see?
Could you move it just a bit closer to the camera? Perfect. Yeah.
yeah, better.
So this dog ended up being in Trouble Dog,
Right.
and this
Yeah,
is your friend's dog. Okay.
right. And so this is you can see those better. So this was just drawing the dog. Um, and it
But
took
the sketch you have up here showing all the different covers, I think for, again, people to see that you didn't do a finished drawing, you're just getting the feel of what it would look like. And then
right.
that gets
Yeah, that's right,
perfected.
Barney. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, these are ideas for the cover. So I did just, stacks of those. Um, and
Again, I don't think
it's all
people
about working
realize,
something out, you know?
yeah, but there's so many choices you had. Did ultimately the art director pick the one they wanted?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I have to mention the creative director I worked with was brilliant. Holly Hoover. She was just such a big help through this whole process.
So
Mm.
here's a question for all of our creators. We've talked a lot about refining illustrations, trying over and over again, different drafts.
Hmm.
Carol, I think we're going to talk about a little later, how many drafts you had for this book when you were writing. And so I'm just curious to know, are all of you, writing and illustrating every day? What's your habit look like when it comes to, writing and illustrating?
So I try to write every day in the morning, first thing in the morning. I'm just a morning person, and if I don't get writing first thing, then other stuff comes along and my brain isn't working as well. But I do go through periods where I'm either traveling or I have something else going on in my life, like promotion for this book has required lots of me doing
Yeah.
blog responses and stuff, or some family crisis comes along. So I go through periods where I don't get a chance to write every day, but I try to write something every day if I don't have enough time to write a lot, but that's my goal.
Yeah.
What about you, Larry and Barney?
Well, the this book, for obvious reasons, is really very popular. So it's like I've never had of all the 26 books I've done, this book has been like there's something about it in the ether, out there that requires, like Carol just said, a lot of promotion and stuff, and I've had to like start learning how to do Blue Sky, and I'm not there yet, but how to do things technically, which I'm not a technical person, so it's really a challenge. Um, so yeah.
It seems like a lot. Yeah. So Barney,
Sure.
I'm interested to hear from your perspective as both an author and an illustrator. What does your habit look like?
It's it's changed. I have two adult children now, but when they were little, I was the dad that drove the van, and I would take them to soccer practice and tutors and wherever, and I would do paintings in the back. I had a little art studio set up in the back of my dad van. But now that the kids are out, I pretty much after I walk my dog in the morning, or dogs, depending on who slept over that night, I come out here into my studio, and I mean, it depends. I usually have a book that's due. I try to do 2 books a year. So I'm in different phases with different things. But like last night at 11 o'clock, I was in bed on the iPad drawing, working on the book I'm working on right now. So my days are fluid as far as it's not necessarily 9 to 5, but I'm in here every morning for the most part. And I probably stop at 4:30 when it's time to feed the dog and walk him again. And depending on what my deadlines are, I might come back outside at night. And because I'm drawing a lot on the iPad, it never leaves me. So if I'm flying somewhere or I'm waiting at a doctor's appointment, I am drawing. So
Mhm.
it's I kind of live and breathe it.
Yeah, that's, I didn't answer that question, but yeah, you're right. I do the same thing. I've drawn in the library, I've drawn outside. My wife is an author. We've done picture books together, and sometimes we like spread it out on the kitchen table and leave it and come back to it and see what it feels like. And yeah, yeah,
What?
I don't have a structure.
Larry, does your wife, so I find it harder to just write all the time anywhere where there's distractions.
Mhm.
I kind of
Yeah.
like to be at my computer, the shades down so I can't look outside and enjoy the view,
Yeah.
and then I get into the world. But does your wife write every place like you do, or does she need a special?
No, she doesn't. She can't.
No.
I'm used to like a lot of things going on around me, so I can like shut
Yeah.
all that off and
Same.
whatever it is, you know.
And I
But
think it uses a different, like I was saying with photography, art uses a different part of your brain. So you probably can go in that world and ignore the conversations and
well, I have been trying to write too, so I know what it's like. And I've seen her, and even if I'm in the house walking in the kitchen and she's upstairs, it's like I feel like I'm invading her territory, you know, which I respect. I have a great deal of respect for that. I mean, you really have to concentrate.
yeah, I
So,
tell my husband, do not bother me in the morning. It's my writing time. Do not come
yeah,
in.
right. I think that's really crucial.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could do it without being undisturbed, you know. It's like you have to be, it has to be a quiet place. It has to be, I would say that the one thing about where you work is you have to trust that that's going to be your place and you're not going to be bothered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that. Um, Larry, I know we kind of went through Tucker's sketches, but I just want to ask a question. Um, Tucker, the final version of Tucker, looks a lot like Carol's dog.
Yes,
It,
right.
was that a
That
coincidence?
was a
How did
total
that happen?
coincidence. I had no idea that Carol had a dog like that until I saw a picture and I thought, oh my gosh, look at that.
You
Cool.
didn't even know I had a dog. I
No,
probably,
I didn't know.
yeah.
And
And
that's
now
the
people
thing
look at
about
that. And now people look at that and say, "Oh yeah, is that you? About you? That's your about
yeah,
your dog?" There's no,
I'll bet they do, right? Yeah. You know,
Car-
usually the author and illustrator are not in communication with each other. And that so there's no way I would have known that she had a dog like that. Lily.
Carol, what was your reaction when you saw Tucker, but maybe Lily, on the cover of your book?
yeah, that was so fun. Yeah, and I had seen some of the earlier ones of the dog that Larry's described as kind of mean, and so this was well, real surprised then to have a golden retriever that looked like my own dog.
Meant to be.
Hey, while you're on that spread, I want to show you. You got 1, 2, and this is 3. This is what ended up in the book.
Yeah.
And
So
the final is very the dog Tucker looks a lot lighter than he did
yeah,
like in the second sketch, and obviously the first sketch is much different. But Barney brought up a good point earlier when we were talking. The colors here are so different in the first sketch compared to the second one, compared to the
And
final.
and and the kid who's looking back is so crucial. And he
yeah,
wasn't there in the
right.
first one.
Yeah, right. So that was all added. That's when I revise stuff and I think of things. So your mind has to have that time alone with itself, to think of those things that are unique to revisions. But the reason I redid this is because at this point, Tucker was I had a different way of drawing it that I needed it to look consistent with all the other ones. And the one before this, it was a retriever, but it wasn't consistent with what I wanted. I wanted a cleaner color. This was just a little too overdone. So
You can
that,
definitely see that. Yeah.
yeah, I wanted a lighter feeling.
It almost brings I don't know, it almost feels very hopeful. Like
Yeah.
you're foreshadowing something good is about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And the nice thing about picture books is when you turn the page, it's always the same, right? The book is always the same. It never changes, which is really,
Right.
which is really a brilliant thing about a picture book is it gives the reader that feeling, that young reader, they know what's going to happen. So they trust it. So that's kind of cool.
I like this relationship that you're talking about between the young reader and the book, that physicality. I don't know if I've ever thought about that before, but I really like that idea of trusting a
Mhm.
book, of knowing you're in the same book while you're holding it.
You're also learning how to read it. When you first open the first page, you're setting up the reader to trust what's going to happen. And so if you do something in the illustrations that pulls the reader out of the story, that hurts it. So that's why I redid this because I thought the other drawing with my new illustrations would pull the reader out of the story and distract them, and that's not
Hmm.
what I want.
Along those similar lines, Barney and Carol, do you feel like that with words? Kind of how Larry's talking about creating this trusting relationship between the reader and the book. How do you do that with words?
Hmm.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever really thought about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, as far as a story, you want to make the story as good as you can and captivating.
And
I,
consistent, and of course
yeah,
the character has to be consistent, and you
Mhm.
have to have the forward movement of the change. And
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think
Larry, you've given us a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Carol and Barney do that because when you first see the title of Barney's book, you know what it's going to be about. You trust that inside of it is not going to be something different. You're not going to talk about the Empire State Building.
Well,
Carol, your book, it starts right away into exactly what the book's going to be. So the reader trusts what the rest of the book is going to be about.
the title came to me almost before anything else.
Oh,
Really?
really? Yeah. Well, I'm glad it didn't change.
Thanks. Me
I,
too.
lo- I love the title. Okay, before we go to our first activity, Hannah, do you want to talk about our results from the last poll question really quick?
Of course. Yeah. 38% found that the most surprising thing about Tucker's nose was he could smell out tiny invasive weeds. Second was turtle dust underground, 28%. 19% were the snails, and then 16% was grizzly bear poop. I do agree with 38% of you. I found that the most surprising. The invasive weeds was the most surprising for me.
When I
That
first
was-
read the book, I was so surprised by the snails. I thought that was really interesting when Tucker's sniffing along the beach looking for the snails.
It's interesting that it surprised me when I was doing my research that they could be two flowers that looked so much alike that humans couldn't tell the difference, but one was invasive and needed to be found. And the dogs could always know the difference because of the smell instead of trying to
Wow.
look at how it looked.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Incredible. All right, Hannah, if you want to launch our last poll question. And then Larry, oh, you know what? I think you actually showed us the sketch earlier from your book.
Oh yeah, I think I did, right?
Yes. So here's a close-up. Love the dog's tongue in all of these. It's always doing something different.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Well, these dogs, they're quite amazing. So, like, just the ears and the nose and the tongue is all chance, and the tail are all chances to animate the dog.
Very playful. And so I know you also work with cartoons, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is
So
this
I
kind of
yeah.
your evolution of how you make a cartoon? Tell us a little more.
Okay, so there's this local newspaper here, which is a real fabulous newspaper. I draw cartoons for, and I've won quite a few Colorado Press Association awards. So this is just shows you an example of, so I'm somewhere, maybe like Barney, I'm somewhere else. Like maybe I'm at a restaurant at breakfast or something. I just think of this idea, and that is just like a piece of paper I scribbled on the left, and then I thought that's pretty cool. So this dog was barking at the moon to make it disappear because he thinks he's so smart. So then I just did that cartoon and they published it. So it's just, yeah, that's a little bit of an evolution of a cartoon.
I love being able to see the process. And I love hearing, how you just had a piece of paper and you kind of went with it. I've heard of authors who have started their books on napkins before,
Sure.
while they're out at a coffee shop.
Yeah. Well, there was a cartoonist that said something I thought that was pretty cool, and he said sometimes ideas just come through you. Sometimes you have to work like, oh God, days on something. So this one just kind of came through me.
Have you read, has anyone here read Rick Rubin's The Creative?
Yes. I
Yes.
just I just listened to it. It was lovely to hear him read it.
What is that book?
It's on creativity. Rick Rubin, who's a music producer,
Oh, yeah, right.
and he's
I
a
think it's,
wise man.
I think
I'll
it's
have to
called The
look.
Creative Act of Being, maybe.
Yeah.
It's funny. After the last poem in my dog book is a cat, and everyone who's picked up the book goes, "Are you going to write a cat book?" And I was at my vet showing her the book, and my vet asked me, Dr. Buddha, and I said, "I'm not a cat person. I'm a dog person." And she said, "Oh, but you have to see my cat." She takes out her cell phone, shows me a picture of her cat, and she goes, "No one believes me, but this cat bites." And I got in the car and I wrote a poem in the parking lot. And over the next 5 days, 38 cat poems came out of me.
Wow.
And one was at 4 in the morning. I woke up, wrote it on my phone, and it was fine when I got up that next day. And talk about things coming through you. I don't understand how it happened. And we were just in Morocco, and I got another poem in the middle of the night. It just I woke up with it, and so you just sort of get into a zone. It's different for me. I mean, I've never been a poet before, so it's definitely a new thing. But when it comes through you, it's pretty great.
You've
I know
never
Rick
been a poet before.
Mm-mm.
This is all kind of new to you.
Oh yeah,
Wow,
so I've
that's
been a songwriter since I'm 8. So in some respect, yeah, but not never done a book of poems. So
I know Rick Rubin, he talks about that idea. Like when an idea comes to you, you have to take it and you have to run with it, or else it will go back into the universe and it's someone else's now.
yeah, that was a great yeah.
Yeah, it really feels like that.
Um, so Larry, while I have you here, I know you were going to do some illustrating for us,
Yeah.
and Hannah and I wanted to remind everyone, if you'd like to see Larry kind of on the full screen, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And if you pin Larry's, let's see, here we go. If you pin Larry's picture, it will be larger for you so that everyone can see it and can watch him illustrate a little better.
How is this on the screen? Is
Perfect.
it? Okay.
Looks good.
Oh yeah, I can see we can get much nosier about what's in your room now.
You don't want to know. You don't want to know what's over there and over
I
there.
understand. I did the same. Yeah.
Well, the one thing about, like I said, that dogs is how animated they are, and to capture that kind of animation, I'm going to try it here. We'll see what happens. If it doesn't work out, then I'm not the artist. That was somebody else.
Dog ghost.
So here's the page, and what I'm going to do is try to fill up the page. That's what I think of first, like, how do I want to put this on the page? Sometimes when I'm just drawing and sketching something I don't really care, I just drawing it and sketching it on the page. So it doesn't matter where it ends up. So we'll try this here. And I usually just start somewhere. You know, it's not like I have a consistent way of starting at something. I don't, not consistently start at the nose. I don't consistently start at the anywhere else. So the main thing though is I'm trying to think of getting the face down.
Okay, so the face comes first.
In this case, yeah. And then I'm gonna try and draw this like roughly. I've got a drawing here that I did that I'm trying to copy from. So that's why I keep looking down.
Interesting, because some people do geometric shapes first and then kind of flush it out. You're really going for the actual dog.
Yeah.
I would make a rough sketch joke, but it's too obvious. Those are rubber bumper noses, my wife always says.
I was reading through some of our comments, and there's actually a student who was on the call earlier who is working on their own book about dogs. They're both writing and illustrating the book.
All
So
right.
this webcast is perfect timing for them.
Good. Keep going.
We also had a librarian say that they're hoping to have a service dog for their library.
Nice.
Right.
I hope they can get that.
Yeah.
My neighbor's dog is a service dog at the children's hospital up the road from me. His name is Ollie. And Ollie and I, whenever we're on walks and we pass each other, I really love Ollie. He's a big golden doodle, super fluffy.
Mhm.
And I was talking to his owner, Nelson, one day. And I always feel like when I meet Ollie on the sidewalk, he's very loving towards me. He'll always kind of come up and nuzzle me. He definitely wants to see me. So I was talking to his owner, Nelson, and Nelson goes, yeah, service dogs, they really know when someone needs a little extra love.
Hmm.
And so I think maybe Ollie can smell that on me. And I appreciate it.
We so wanted our dog. I had a white golden doodle named Arlo, who I did a book called Arlo Needs Glasses. He couldn't catch a ball to save his life. And he was an 85-pound white golden doodle. And he was skittish. They test them to be a service dog, and if you drop something, that's as could happen in a hospital, he would not, he didn't like it. So he blew his opportunity because it was like doodles to me are like stuffed animals that are alive. And
Right.
they're so sweet and loving, but he just didn't have the temperament to be not everyone can make it.
Lily's very oriented towards people that way.
And they're nuzzlers.
Sorry. She's very gentle with kids, you know, but she'll jump up on men that seem like they want her to jump up on them, even though we try to tell her not to. And she's very good if she sees people who are in distress.
I don't think I've ever drawn a dog with a tongue sticking out.
There's a dog in the book with a tongue sticking out, Larry. You have a picture of Tucker with his tongue sticking out.
Yeah, right.
And what I really like here is that, Tucker's paw is up. Is he trying to get a treat? What's he doing?
Right. So that there's so much communication with a dog, right? I mean, they don't speak, but they do speak.
Yeah.
Also, hats off to Larry. Larry, I feel like you did this sketch so quickly. It's so great to see it in motion happening right here.
So, but the thing too is like anybody that wants to know illustration, the one thing that I do a lot is keep revising it on the drawing itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not erasing stuff. It's just that here I had the ear like this needs to be out. This is not right. So I changed it, right? And a lot of it is after you get the feel of it, then so like this doesn't feel quite right here. This to me, so it would be more like this, be more of a snout. Maybe the nose would be down here a little more and larger, So
Yeah, but you're not erasing, which for anybody who does, it's great. Do
yeah.
you know John Burningham's work?
Oh yeah, I love his work.
You can look at some of his drawings and still see pencil lines around it.
Yeah.
Which you have. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of those I take out and some of them I just leave because
Yeah. Yeah, but it has I'd love to see them animated.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Work on that.
I will by 5 tonight.
When they make the movie of Trouble Dog.
Yeah, right.
Well, thank you so much, Larry, for sharing how you illustrate. I also wanted to show a few of Barney's illustrations from The Smell of Wet Dog.
Well, these are actually outtakes. Well, I had done the picture on the left. That was the one we were going to use, and then all of a sudden, the second editor that ended up working with us, Taylor Norman, goes, it's about the smell, not the wetness of the wet dog, the smell of wet dog. So I redid the pictures to have the kid reacting to the smell. Although I really like that one. And it didn't make it. And the one on the right didn't make it either. And none of those drawings are in the book, but they're all test drawings. Same with these. You can see they're from my digital sketchbook. None of these are in the book. Actually, I'm Your Puppy Made It.
I love the one with the dog looking at the pie.
Yeah, he didn't make it. I think I like that. And then this is when I was doing way too realistic. That's our friend's dog. I mean, it looks exactly like our dog on the left. And the one on the right, I was doing a dog that actually had 3 legs. And he's kind of creepy. His eye. It's creepy to me. He didn't make it either.
And so, it's interesting to see the color in these. This is very different than what's in your book now.
Yeah, I really wanted to limit. When Neil, my editor, wanted a black and white book, I kind of said, why don't I do a limited palette? And I did. These were way different. The book would have had a completely different feel with this.
Yeah, right.
I'm really glad we went with a limited palette. Way too bright.
Yeah, that's right. That's a really good point, Barney. A book, picture book, the words and the art have to be, have to work together. Like
absolutely.
Like it has to be. So you look at that book and you think there's no other art that would have worked for that. There's no other words that would have worked for that.
Which is why I wanted to show what didn't work.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah. I don't know what else I sent.
Well, I think next we actually have a fun activity with Barney. So, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen again. And if everyone wants to see Barney on, the full screen, the full picture screen, you're just going to go ahead and pin him in Zoom.
So I was gonna draw, and then I thought, well, we had one. Larry does that really well, and rather than do that, I would sing a song. Normally when I'm in front of kids in person, I do call and response stuff, but since it's really hard to do with the time lag on Zoom, this song doesn't require anything other than listening. And this is called I Want a Dog. And it seems really appropriate. I've done a lot of dog songs. You can hear it's not tuned. It's close enough for a dog. I want a dog. Please say yes. If he makes one, I'll clean up his mess. He'll be so smart, I'll teach him to play chess. I want a dog, so please say yes. Don't want a hippo, they're way too big. And I'll never, ever, ever want a pig. Don't want a bear that lies around just like a rug. I want a dog that I can hug. One little dog, can't you see? It could be worse. I could want 3 big St. Bernards. We'd need 2 yards. I don't want one dog just for me. It will behave, be so small. You'll hardly notice him at all. He'll do the dishes every day. He'll mow the lawn and rake the leaves away. If a dog is what I get, never ask you for another single pet. Yes, a dog, and that is that. Although it might be nice to have a little cat.
Very good.
That's it.
Yes, thank you.
Super. Yeah.
That's great.
Thanks.
What a great ending, because it leads right into my next question. You end book, Barney, with a poem about a cat. So I was hoping to ask everyone on the call what they thought about cats. Are you a cat person, a dog person? Can you be both?
I have 2 cats. One has been circling around me and was sitting in my lap for a little while. So I like cats too.
I like to visit them. But my experience had been they were chewing up the couches, and I like them outside.
Lily chews up things, the cats don't.
Oh, really? Oh, see?
I like cats. I like the cats. You got to be careful with them, because sometimes they'll just grab you. But I really like the friendliest cat around here is just a delight.
I think it would be hard for me to have a cat because, I love Hazel's golden retriever energy. I like that she gives me a lot of attention. And with cats in the past, I haven't received a ton of attention from them. So I don't know if we'd be the best of friends.
Definitely more independent than dogs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Although from what I hear, it could be in the middle of the night when they decide they want your attention.
They're different, but I know our cats will be enjoying hanging out with us, and then Lily comes running in, and then they take off, and you can tell they're upset. But sometimes it's reverse. Lily will be hanging out, and one of the cats comes in, and it seems to disturb Lily. So
I'll say as an illustrator, cats are a delight to draw.
Yeah, I'm having a good time drawing them.
Yeah, right.
And I have a new appreciation for them after writing and interviewing a lot of cat people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they had a very distinct things they wanted me to write about, like the litter box and and how they like to sit on clothes when they're still warm out of the dryer and things that I never knew about. So yeah, I'm
That's
appreciating
cool.
them.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great.
Yeah.
And then Barney, would you like
Oh,
to read this
the
poem?
last. It's so
Yeah.
funny. I would draw him so much differently now that I've been doing a cat book. Imagine that. This is the last poem in the book. How could that be? Did you forget? What about me, the superior pet? Imagine that. You forgot the cat.
Oh, I love that.
So
Great.
thanks.
I like how the words nestle into between his ears.
That's a wonderful art director.
Hmm.
That's exactly how my cats feel, I think.
So here, can I show you this real quick? I don't know that this will show up, but this is what I drew last night, thinking I'm hoping one of the poems is called Tuna Breath. And I drew this,
Oh, that's cool. That's great.
and I haven't submitted it yet, so we'll see.
A little sneak peek for everyone on the call.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I have to mention Liz, our elementary editorial director. She has a cat, and so she was very excited to ask this question today. Whenever I get on a meeting with Liz, I'm always talking about my dog, and then very quietly she goes, "I have a cat."
Well, just even the fact that you said it that way, that's a cat person, very quietly. The
It's-
dog people would be more boisterous about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, as we start to wrap up this webcast, I think we've sprinkled in really great advice throughout. Oh my gosh, the almost 2 hours we've been together.
Oh,
Um, time
Those-
has flown.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are some parting words, either for our librarians who are aspiring book creators or for young students? What advice do you want to leave them with today?
I
Hmm.
have a suggestion. It's not something somebody wants to hear, but usually your first draft is pretty terrible. And you have to accept that. And I know I put off starting Trouble Dog for a long time because I couldn't think of how to make it perfect. And of course it wasn't perfect. And so I think my advice would be to just start and accept that you get something down and it's going to get better and better. And you have to accept that it's probably not going to be perfect at first. In fact, it might even be terrible.
Hmm.
is it,
That's great advice.
Brene Brown's talks about this. It's a something's first draft. I won't repeat that right now in front of a bunch of students, but yeah, it's many drafts. And be kind to yourself. And I always I mentor some writers. I say, put your ego in a box and bury it in the yard. Because editors are going to want to have, and people in your critique group, opinions about it, and you have to kind of learn to sit with them and digest it. I've learned to say, let me sleep on it. Because my usual reaction when someone wants me to change something that I've spent so much time on is like, no, in my head. And I just go, thank you, let me sleep on it. And sometimes those ideas actually are great. Sometimes they don't work, but just consider it.
Those Barney and Carol have really great advice right there. The only thing I think I might add is that it's always good to put something away for a while and
Absolutely.
just let it, sit away from you so you forget about it. Because the thing about seeing things later after forgetting about it is you do see it with fresh eyes, and you can look at it and realize, oh, what was I thinking? I got to do this to that. That's what's wrong with it. I see. That's what was a challenge. So it's just our projects, they're just never done, are they?
Well, hopefully at some point they are.
Yeah, they have to be. The thing about a picture book is you get it printed and that's it. You can't go back and change anything. So you try your hardest to do the best you can.
Yeah.
Larry, Ray Bradbury, he used to put his manuscripts away for a full year.
Did he really?
Yeah, isn't that incredible?
There's a
He
good
could
reason for that though.
he could afford it.
Yeah, if you got the luxury to do that, a lot of times you can't, right? So
I did a book signing with him once. There was a line out the door for him, and I had
Great.
3
Thank you so
people. It
much for
was really
sharing
fun.
your advice. I think it's very helpful, as creators to hear from other creators.
Yeah.
wow.
All right. We had nearly 100 questions submitted from the audience
Wow.
from this webcast. And so we had to, only select a few to go through and answer. So Larry, how about I'll start with you.
Mhm.
These are some questions submitted from the audience. Have you created work with any other animals?
How many animals do you want me to mention?
Maybe you should cap out at, 5 or 6.
All right, so I'll just list the I did do a book called Bim Bam Bop and Una, which were about these racing ducks.
Racing
And
ducks.
yeah, racing ducks. So I've drawn ducks, um, crocodiles, bears, mountain lions, rabbits, chickens, dogs, of course. Yeah, every animal you can think of, I've drawn.
Are those books all on your website if people go ahead and search you?
No, well, I'm talking about the one with the geese or the ducks, that's on my website, yeah. And there's as far as books go, I mean, that's just projects I've done cartoons with a lot of different animals and stuff. So it's more general, it's not specifically for picture books, but yeah.
Okay. Let's see, another question we had submitted. What training does it take to become an illustrator?
What the most consistent thing about an illustrator's training is drawing all the time. Other than that, um, some college. I got an associate degree, which is a 2-year degree in commercial art. Um, so that helped a lot. But I also have to tell you, and they don't have it anymore, and it's a shame, but when I went to high school, I took a art correspondence course from Minneapolis.
Hmm.
It was the same one where Charles Schulz was a
Wow.
brief time an instructor. And that was invaluable to me. So, yeah, school, and
And
draw, draw, draw.
draw. And I don't think if you interviewed 100 illustrators, I think you'd find a variety of past experiences, but I think the love of drawing and not stopping. I had a teacher in art school who criticized everything I drew, and some kids stopped drawing with that teacher. I kept
Mm.
going anyway. I remember her walking into one of my other classes going, "How come you didn't draw like that for me?" Well, she created an environment that it was so oppressive. So, yeah, don't, if it's something you're passionate about, just do it and do it and do it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Great advice. Well, speaking of Barney, we had a few questions for you submitted from the audience. Are any of the poems in your book, The Smell of Wet Dog, are they about your personal dogs or dogs that you know?
Yeah, I think I had mentioned that I did slowing down for our dog Lucy, who had gotten pretty old and tired. I did some for the puppies. It's interesting. I used Ollie for the model for the cover, but well, actually, yeah, no, his one there was one about not wanting to leave the house. What if? Like, 'cause I always think about how much he's going to miss me. I think I actually miss him, and that was yeah. So yeah, a lot of them were dogs I know.
Great. And another question, how do you give furry characters a voice in your book? How does that work?
Well, when you say a voice, we're just talking about a narrative that feels real. And I think it's just from really getting dogs and understanding them as I would any character. And I think Carol probably, as a writer, you want something to resonate that feels real because we're writing about either emotions or stories that have happened.
Yeah, there were some decisions to be made about whether to have Tucker, you know, to have Tucker express what he's thinking or keep him more dog-like and stuff. So I guess it can depend on the kind of story you're writing. I think
That's true.
there's
Yeah.
lots of different ways.
And Carol, we had a few questions for you. What traits in dogs helps conservationists know if they'll make a great conservation dog?
Yeah, interesting. We had a neighbor's dog who learned how to open the door and get out, and we thought, okay, maybe this is a great conservation dog. But there's an Working Dogs for Conservation has created an online tool that and you've got it up there. I think at least the place that has it, it's called Rescues to the Rescue. And they have a tool that shows people in shelters how to sample the dogs that are considered too wild, too crazy, too intense to see if they'll make good conservation dogs. And one of the things is that they have an obsessive fixation on a toy. And so, like in the story where she bounces the ball and Tucker's super interested, they'll take the dog out and they'll throw a ball and they'll see how intense. Does the dog get distracted by food? Does the dog get distracted by other dogs? Does this dog want to go say hi to people like Lily would? And then if the dog sort of passes that first hurdle, then they'll hide the ball or put obstacles in the way and see if the dog is just so fixated and can stay on that task. And so there's a big long thing that they have done, which is really neat because not just for conservation dogs, but it creates a platform where shelter people and people who need dogs for various jobs can contact each other, and they can try to get homes for dogs that don't fit into a normal family life, but make great dogs for certain jobs. So I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
And thank you so much for sending this website. If anyone is interested in looking more into it, the website is called Rescues to the Rescue. And Carol, one last question. How much research did you do about dogs while writing your text? And how many drafts did you have when you were writing it?
Oh. So I had to do a lot of research. As I said, I'd never heard of a conservation dog before. I knew about dogs, but I didn't know about that. And I really liked conservation. But so I approached Megan at the expo where I saw her and told her I thought this would make an interesting story. And she said, "Oh, that sounds great." And then I met her again later at another exhibit where Pepin was also showing off his skills. But before I spent a lot of time with her, I knew I needed to do a lot of research, so I didn't ask a lot of stupid questions I could find out for myself. So I read books, I read articles, I used Google to look up all kinds of old articles, went to the library, learned a lot about dogs and conservation and how they're used. And then I still spent hours with her. She was so patient. And then she also introduced me to Amy so that I had her experiences. And both of them spent so much time answering all my questions about, how they're trained and what kind of experiences that they had in the wild. So it was a lot of, and I'd have to catch them between trips, as I think I've said. So there was a lot of time spent on research. And then drafts. Oh yeah, I looked on my computer the other day for a blog that I was doing, and it's probably more than 100 drafts. They're not everyone is a thorough start over draft, because I would get a really messy draft and then I would just sort of accept those things and do another draft. So I have a lot of them that aren't too many changes, but I probably did maybe 10 serious drafts where I'd make some really big changes. In the beginning, I got caught up a lot in writing about all of the trouble that the trouble dog could get into, and less about the training and the work in the field. And I wrote about the sadness of him being taken to the pound. And so I had to kind of change all that. But there was always that progress from rejected dog to conservation dog. So I always had the right direction to go. But there was a lot of drafts.
That's a lot of time spent writing and revising and editing.
Yeah.
And it was, and I say, I was so helped by my critique group, and then later my agent, really, my agent and I went through 2 or 3 drafts. So
Wonderful. Before I start with my thank yous, Hannah, did we have one last poll answer to go over?
We did. 67% said the blue elephant, and I believe that is the toy Tucker has.
People were very observant on the call. Great job, everyone. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you to all 3 of you for being here. Thank you to all the work you put into making wonderful children's books. Thank you for answering all of my questions and providing me with wonderful photos and interior spreads. All of your efforts, go towards librarians and our young readers. So thank you so much for being here and for doing this webcast. Another special thank you goes out to all of our audience members for taking the time out of their day to join us. We know how hard you work as librarians and educators and lovers of literacy. We couldn't do what we do here at JLG without you. So thank you so much for being here. And please let us know if you had any classrooms of students, please let us know what they thought in the chat. And then here at JLG, it's our mission to get books into the hands of students and library patrons. If you've enjoyed today's webcast and would like to learn more about us, or the categories we offer, or how we support over 17,000 libraries across the nation, you can visit our website or send us an email. I'm going to turn the mic over to our creators one last time. Barney, do you have any parting words of gratitude to share?
Well, first of all, to have gotten to have my book as a selection from the Junior Library Guild is such an honor, and it was really an honor to be here. Really, and I didn't know Carol or Larry, so this has been wonderful, and thank you for having us. And if you like my music, actually, I have 4 children's albums that are all streamable. So,
Oh, great.
yeah, that's definitely a big part of my world too, as you can tell from the guitars behind me. So thanks for having me.
yeah, I agree.
Thanks,
Thanks so much for having me. And it is a huge honor to be a Junior Library Guild selection and have this chance to reach librarians and students. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. It is really an incredible honor. And I've loved the Junior Library Guild since my very first days of illustrating. So thank you again, and it's been a joy.
Thank you so much. One last thing before we go. Liz is a part of the team that actually picked both of your books to be shipped out to our librarians. So that's just a fun fact. Our editorial team, they read so many manuscripts, so many books pre-publication, thousands and thousands. I mean, they spend all hours of the days reading.
Wow.
So it's pretty incredible how we've been able to connect and come together to talk about these books.
That's fascinating.
And Liz is a
Yeah.
huge part of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah,
Thank you, Liz.
Thank all of you. Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope everyone has a great weekend, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.